We're live right at 11 o'clock my time. And I see a couple people have posted things. It's going to take YouTube a while to figure out that you're out there. But it's me and my buddy, Miss Teri. First
Yay.
thing Monday morning.
Yeah. Nice to be here, everybody.
So,
And we
how's
had
your
a nice
world?
talk back in the studio, and I always think we ought to record those.
Yeah, I was saying, God, we talked about something really interesting. What the hell did I do with that?
What was
I know
that?
the one thing we talked about is today we're going to talk about, and God help me, I do not know how to say this man's name. It's Fish Hot Han. Is that how you say his name?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think Mark Alba channels him, and he knows how to say it, but
Yeah.
I'm no good at that.
He's a Buddhist monk who
Yeah.
he's been alive in our lifetime. He just died a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And if you can, and do you know how to spell his name, or should I type it into the chat?
Um, you can type it in if you want to. I'm kind of scared to touch anything today that's
Oh, that's
electronic.
right. You've got a yeah,
Titch not Hun. Titch not Hun.
Titch not Han.
Yeah, yeah. I could probably handle that though.
No, I just
Okay.
did it. It's gonna
You're smart not to let me touch it, I gotta say. It
okay.
hasn't been
Oops, that's wrong. You went away, Teri. Wait a minute. Where'd you go? I'm finding her, guys. I don't know if she's not here. Oh, she disappeared out of my studio. You went away. Teri,
I told you,
we can't let Teri.
don't let me touch anything. I have
This is
redone.
this is the name of the author
Yeah.
of this essay. And he's a Buddhist monk, and he was raised in the Western world, wasn't he? And he went to become. I've heard him speak. I actually have a couple books of his on audiobook, the
Mhm.
audibles, and I'll listen to them at night. He's got a very soothing voice.
Yeah. Did
Anyway,
did he write a book about the rainbow body? Or was
yeah,
that yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got that book too.
hmm And he's written about 40 books. I mean, people just follow him around and write down what he says. But he died. I think I remember when he died within the last 2 years.
Wow.
And he's now you're not going anywhere, are you, Teri?
No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm glad I didn't knock anybody else off. So
This is
sorry,
an
guys.
essay he wrote from peace from it's called from a book where peace is every step. That's his name of the book. It goes, if you are a poet, you will see clearly that there are clouds floating on a sheet of paper. Without the cloud, there is no rain. Without the rain, the trees can't grow. Without the trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud is essential for the paper to exist. If the cloud is not here, the sheet of paper cannot be here either. So we so we can say that the cloud and the paper are interbeing as a word. It is not in the dictionary, however, but if someone says the prefix inter with the verb to be, we have a new verb, interbe. Without the cloud and the sheet of paper, they inter are. They are together. If we look at the sheet of paper even more deeply, we will see the sunshine on it. The sunshine is there. And if the sunshine is not there, the forest cannot grow. In fact, nothing can grow. Even we can't grow without sunshine. So if we know that the sunshine is also in that sheet of paper, and the sheet of paper and the sunshine inter are, and if we continue to look, we will see the logger who cut down the tree and brought it to the mill to be transformed into paper. And we can also see wheat. We know the logger cannot exist without daily bread. Therefore, the wheat has become part of the bread that is also part of the sheet of paper. The logger is the father and the mother of these two. We now look at it. If we now look at it this way, and see that without all of these things, the sheet of paper cannot exist. Even looking more deeply, we can see that we are in it too. This is not so difficult to see because we have to look at the sheet of paper, and the sheet of paper is part of our perception. Your mind is here, and the mind is also a part of you. So we can say that everything that is here in the sheet of paper, you cannot point out the one thing that if it was not there would change the time. We have time, space, earth, rain, the minerals that made the soil, the sunshine, the cloud, the river, the heat, everything that coexists is in this sheet of paper. That is why I think the word interbe should be put in the dictionary. To be is to interbe. You cannot be yourself alone. You cannot, you have to interbe with every other thing, the sheet of paper, because everything else is. Suppose we return to the elements of the source. Suppose we return to the sunshine of the sun. Do you think that the sheet of paper is possible, not without sunshine? If we return the logger to his mother, and we have no sheet of paper either, the fact that the sheet of paper is made up of non-paper elements, including the life that creates it. If we return to the non-paper elements of sources, there can be no non-paper at all. If we return, and without the non-paper elements, the mind, the logger, the sunshine, and so on, there is no paper. As thin as a sheet of paper is, it contains something else within it, the universe. When you read this message, my nervous system calms down. I think I am like the paper. Each of us contains everything in the universe. What does this mean to you? How does it resonate with you? That's your answer. And wow. I got this essay from a really interesting lady named Nadia Colburn. And this is her website. And she's a writing coach. But 4 times a year, she holds free writing seminars. And she gives you, it lasts for 7 days. And she gives you a topic each day. And she gives you a set of words and said, try to work these into what you're writing about. Now, I don't write poetry. She does. But she reads you a little story, and then she gives you words that are key into that story. And every time I catch it, and if you go to her website, you can sign up to be given information about her seminars. She also does professional coaching, and she has several books published. And she has the nicest voice. She's also Buddhist and uses a lot of Buddhist perceptions in helping you develop. So that's where this essay came from. And I sent it to Teri, and I said, we ought to talk about this. So you want to talk about it, Teri?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So immediately when I read it, I felt like that Aham Brahmasi, I am the universe, like being a part of everything interwoven, and it's all energy, isn't it? Even our thoughts are energy or vibration. And so, and that paper is vibration. And that old story is if a tree falls in the forest and no one sees it, has it fallen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that without consciousness, without awareness, has anything really happened? So, and thus, if we manifest our own, or change our story, and our consciousness of our story, our awareness of our story, as that changes, and then we can start kind of dancing with the light, dancing with the energy. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Here's someone who says, this is his story. He was from Vietnam. Okay. Oh. He went to live in France in exile.
That's right.
Founded Plum Village, and he passed away last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
I knew that in some part of my brain, but the card catalog gets very blocked at times.
Yeah. Well, mine sure does, man, especially today. It's, I love that story. And at first, when I started reading, I was like, well, but all that really matters is the awareness of it, the consciousness and how we are aware of it. But then I thought, it is really interesting. Like a lot of people here are so well grounded and they love being in nature. So when you go for a walk and you can look at a flower and the consciousness of that flower,
Right.
or like for you, you look at a crystal or a stone and
Right.
you know what it's saying to you. So that subtle senses. So we have the senses of smell and taste and sight. And then we also have the senses of, or the clairs, as a lot of people call them, clairvoyance, cognizance, and then which are more subtle senses. And then the sense of not just knowing what vibration is saying, but knowing the universe.
Right.
And that's a whole nother ball game.
Well, what I thought, well, first of all, there's always a story, an arc to how our shows come together. I got this, and I got this last. What's the date on this? I got it on Friday, and I sent it to Teri and said, I think this is something we should talk about. Over the weekend, I did not know this until Steve Judd pounded into my head. Steve Judd is a very good astrologer from England, and he's really great because he does short readings. Oh, he's so wonderful. And this one's only six minutes long, but he did a reading about why we shouldn't talk to people this weekend. And it's because the sun is conjunct Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healing, and that's the god that he was. He was a centaur who got wounded, and he could never heal himself. And so he's when the sun, that means your ego is going to be sitting, your ego and the ego of everyone else on the planet, whether they like it or not, whether they believe astrology or not, it's going to be sitting right on top of its worst wound. What's the worst thing someone could say to me this week? Somebody's going to say it to them. And the worst day started on Saturday, and it's fading away now. But there's a 48-hour period in there where the sun, absolutely conjunct Chiron, was square Mars, and Mars brings out anger. So a lot of you will have had conversations, and it may take a while for it all to wind back to you. But there's been a whole lot of misunderstood egos, and egos not looking for a fight, but you say the one word that person can't stand. And so also this week I came across a thing called the spiral of shame. And this is about how to unmanifest blessing. This is what you're not supposed to do. Well, we're not supposed to not make mistakes. We make mistakes. They're called experiences. That's how we grow. I made a mistake. Then you spiral out. You go, oh, wow, I'm a horrible human being. Then you come back. I better run away from this situation. And then you go over, everybody hates me and I hate me. And then you go over, just stay away from me, everyone. Then I'm such a burden anyway. Now you're at the bottom of the spiral. There's no point in going on like this. I will always suck. And then the bottom of it is, I am worthless. That's what you're not supposed to do. That's how to unmanifest. You got to remember, everybody makes mistakes. Instead of focusing on the shame, oh, I did it wrong, I burnt this or whatever. And I burnt some clam chowder last week that if I'd have wanted to spiral into shame, it was the stupidest thing I've ever done. It was a beautiful clam chowder. I took 1 cup out of it, and then I left it there to just, I turned the knob the wrong way. And when I came back, I had brown gunk. Anyway, use an affirmation for yourself. Like, it's okay to make a mistake. I mean, really, everybody makes them, and I am not alone in the universe. And God didn't pick me out today to make that mistake. I was raised under Presbyterian God, and God was really big on sticking with stuff. And talking, if it really hurts, talking right out your feelings about it. But And if you hurt someone and they come back and they attack you, just think, oh, that's Mars being square the sun in Chiron, you know,
Yeah.
and say, I'm sorry you took it that way. But that's all you can say because it's how they took it. It's not maybe what you said. Of course,
Yeah.
if you call them a mag and an SOB, then it might be, but depending on, and they may not be either of those two things, right? And so I guess I want to help people realize that it used to scare me to think I was part of everything. And then one day I had that epiphany where my heart opened and I was sitting in this chair and I felt like I was standing at the edge of the universe. And I mean, like the whole universe was spread out in front of me on the little wooby things. And I had this overwhelming sense and it said, yes, you are as important as every star that's out there, down to the smallest molecule, down to the biggest universe, down to the biggest black hole. And black holes I couldn't even listen to stories about them. I just thought they're too freaky. I can read about them now because all they do is take us to the next dimension where we also, but anyway. And the one thing it said to me that really triggered for me is it said, you're not alone. And my whole life has been spent feeling very alone. And sometimes when you're psychic, you can feel very alone because you can't express to other people what you know. You know, they're like, why are you crawling around in my head? That'd be my first thought, if I was one of them. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's I think that's one of the beautiful things about YouTube is that so many of us can come here and talk about things like this, and nobody thinks we're crazy, or we're a lot of our, especially lifelong friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
That grew up with us and see us as different people. I mean, in their constructs, you're not Nancy Jean, the
Psychic.
psychic, the intuitive, the astrologer, the crystal goddess, whatever. And instead you're like, oh, that's Nancy Jean from third grade. And
That's the irony. There's an irony to that. I went to my 50th class reunion.
Yeah.
5 years ago. And I had just started my YouTube channel. And no, I'd started reading tarot and putting it out on Facebook, and a lot of them followed me on Facebook. And of course, right before the reunion, everybody gets on Facebook and follows, um, follows you. And we went around the night before the reunion. We had a dinner everybody could go to, and there were a lot of us there. There was a guy I went to kindergarten with, was there. There were people. I grew up in the same town. I had the luxury of spending the first 18 years of my life in one place.
Nice.
And I realize now that's an incredible luxury. But we all went around the tables, and by this time people have been coming up and saying, "Oh, I see what you do on Facebook. How does that work?" And da 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 da. And yeah, you remember how you used to always know things before they happened? And I didn't. And so when we went all around the room, everybody'd say where there wasn't. Like Charlie Hoffman, who I went to kindergarten with, he's now a dentist in Orlando. I hope his office is still there. And he lived like 3 houses down from me on my street. And to see where everybody landed, one of my friends that was my best friend, kind of, your running buddy in junior high, she went to Vassar, and she's a psychologist, and she ends up being the psychologist that at Harvard Law School teaches med students how to use psychology, how to understand what's happening. Anyway, so I mean, they're just, and my oldest friends, Bucky, Pam, and Meg, were all there, and Bucky lives in Arizona, Meg lives in Washington State, and Pam lives in Wisconsin. But when we get together, it's just like none of those years happened. And of course, they knew I'd been reading cards for years because they were close enough to know that. But when we went all the way around the room, two of us got standing ovations from the people in the room. One was the guy who had 21 grandchildren. And everybody stood up and applauded him. He's still a farmer, and he's still living on the farm his parents ran. And then when I stood up and I said, well, I don't know if you follow me now, but apparently it's not new news, but I've been reading as a psychic and a tarot reader, and that's kind of what I do to fill in my retirement time. And I sat down, and the entire room stood and clapped. And I looked at Anita, who was my buddy that's the psychologist at Harvard, and I said, what the hell's that for? And she said, you finally realized who you are.
Oh.
And she said, we all knew it. She said, none of us could have told you what you were, but everybody was saying, oh, no, that doesn't really. They said, of anybody else in the class, it would have amazed you if they stood up and said that. With you, it's like, she always knew. She always knew what to watch out for and where to go and what to do. And I was like,
yeah.
Well,
that's beautiful.
And it's fun to know that you're not alone. So if you can ever get yourself meditated into that state, and I'll sit here in the chair and I said, can y'all come back and tell me I'm not being alone again? And they'll say, no, you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Everybody in the group is talking about, like Eliza says, I was shunned and abused, less than 200 classmates. And this is an extremely safe harbor for us.
Yeah, and it is hard. And when I hear what some of my friends went through who had very religious families, who also were all psychic, and they didn't want them to be, when I hear stories from people about that, it really scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. And I grew up in a real Catholic group, but I went to the School of Metaphysics when I was 12. So everybody knew I was kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, you were in there early.
Yeah. But then when my kids were being raised, I didn't tell anybody about that part of my life. So, because they went to Catholic schools, and I thought, well, they knew they couldn't tell them about their past lives when they went to school and reincarnation and whatnot. But anyway.
Well, my kids were raised with it. I used to teach tarot classes in my living room.
Wow.
And I read cards all the time as quick side income. That was when you were still not afraid to let people come to your house.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen Miranda. I met Jen this weekend, and she's lovely. And one of the things is like first of all, Sean, the one that's a political consultant, do not ask them about this on his political channel because he won't talk about it. But Sean is incredibly psychic. He's a 22 life path. He doesn't always do the right things. I think God's still giving him some new challenges to work through, but he and I used to have our own secret code when we ran the political consulting business together. But even before that, as a child, Sean could walk out into a property we lived on. It was 15 acres almost right next to Love Field, almost in the center of Dallas. And he'd bring back perfectly formed quartz crystals. Now, I knew he wasn't breaking and entering. They still had dirt on them. They had just come out of the ground for him. We had a neighbor who liked to crystal hunt. She used to take him to Arkansas with her because she said, I'd say, Sean, go find me where the pocket is. And he'd just walk off and find them. And he is just, when he wants to turn on. My daughter, Casey, she just sit there and watch me read cards. And she learned how to read them just by watching me read them. And so she used to carry a deck of cards, and she went to a very conservative, she was in a language cluster in a magnet school in Dallas, and went to a very conservative part of Dallas. And one day she came and found a bunch of students praying around her locker. I guess they thought the devil lived in there or something.
Oh, God.
And she was just like, she's a Unitarian. She's like, don't be silly. And, the teacher says, as long as you don't bring them out during school hours, we don't care. She used to make her pin money riding on the bus, and she had a long bus ride to her school, reading kids. And, she just always, and when I was in a long drawn out custody battle, and trust me, you don't want to be a psychic in a custody battle in Dallas, Texas in the 1980s. A good thing. And they had a lawyer, a guardian that used to talk to the kids, and it was kids. The kids were laughing. They said, "This guy's so stupid, Mom." And I said, "I don't tell him that. He won't appreciate it, and he'll hold it against me." But they interviewed the kids, and they were like, "Well, what does your mom do?" "Oh, Mom cooks really good meals. We like what she cooks, and makes great chicken pot pie, and she
Oh,
sews a lot. She sews a lot." I had that time I had a place to put my sewing machine. I sewed a lot. And they said, and finally he said, "Well, does she ever have any cards?" I mean, he was trying to get. I said,
um,
"Yeah, she reads cards. I read cards. If you have a deck, I can read yours." I mean, and then they didn't want to know anymore. So that kind of shut it up. But my kids would come home and tell me everything they asked them. Um, it and my youngest child could broke her first computer when she was 3. I mean, we don't know how she got into the code language because it was an old computer that you're not supposed to be able to break. You know, when you get those screens and they've got all those weird stuff, that's the coding screen. She got in there and we could never figure out. And her dad uh, was a physicist who'd been part of building the first desktops that TI built, and he knew it anyway. So we had to go buy a new computer. We said, do you have one she can't get into?" And it was right. It must have been Microsoft 2004. Was that a generation? Anyway,
I can't remember.
she,
Yeah.
I know, but we went in during the day because we homeschooled her. We took her to the big place where they were showing all the machines, and she'd get on the machines and she'd look at the guy and she said, how can you play a game on this? And they'd set it up and they thought, oh, how cute, because she was like 10. And 10-year-olds weren't supposed to know how to use computers. That's before we realized you shouldn't get a computer without the 10-year-old in the box that knows how to run it. And she'd sit there and she'd start going away. She must have been in more recruiting films and videos for all these companies. We couldn't get her out of there. They bought her dinner. I mean,
Wow.
and this one guy said, "How'd you train this kid?" And Susan now works in computer security and encryption. And she said, "I don't know how to explain it to them, what I do." And that, in the old days in the TV when they were first really talking about the innards of computers, and they'd run that screen by, and people go, "Oh, well, the mistakes over here in the coding." Well, I don't know if you've ever coded a computer. That's not how
Mm-mm.
it works. You have to go line by line. It's arduous stuff. Well, I said, "Hun, how come you're doing so well?" And this is when she'd been in Japan for a few months and had come back and was going to go back to Japan. And she said, "Mom, how do I explain to them how I know how to fix things?" And I said, "Well, what are you seeing?" And she said, when the coding's scanning down, I'll see a part that glows. Now I know the mistakes, the other people don't see the glowing mistakes. And she said, "How do I explain that?" And I just said, "You're going to have to use your instincts." And she always managed to come up with an excuse. But
Yeah.
that's her skill. She doesn't read cards, and she doesn't go out and walk in nature. God knows she acts like grass is a rash making machine. But when she gets in the machines, she knows exactly where she is.
Yeah, she knows, right? Do you think that's
Mhm.
clear cognizance?
Oh, it's some kind of, I don't even know. I don't think we have a word for it.
Yeah. The kids are born knowing that computer software, it's like, right, Cheryl? I love that Cheryl said that. Some of our kids are born with all this computer software knowledge. It's just
Hmm.
ingrained in them, part of their DNA. Yeah, they do it up in the
Hmm.
ship when they go to bed every night. I mean, they're
Hmm.
coming down and knowing it. And a lot of us, like, somebody will say, "Well, how did you know that?" Or where's the mustard, right? Where's the butter?
Hmm.
Where's the bread? We know where it is. We didn't put it away, but we know where it is.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
I thought that
knowing.
was mom instinct. We have to
Um,
know where everything is.
yeah, we do, but how do we know it? I mean, there's that, but I love that she knows how to program and all that and from way back.
She can
That's
see around the
amazing.
electronic corners. She sort of, Sean, her older brother calls her the AI before AI.
Well, and if anybody hasn't seen Sean's channel, what's the name of his channel again?
CLSB, Charles Lawrence Sean Briscoe Politics. It's CLSB Politics. And I usually have a banner for it. Why am I not? Because are you going to banner it?
No, I'm just gonna put it out there. CLSB Politics, because I can't touch anything too much right now because everything I touch.
That's right. Well, you got that's fine. That's fine. And he's up in Wisconsin now, saving humanity from the Republicans, and that's been an interesting transition. He went up there 3 weeks ago, I guess 3 weeks ago. He started his CLSB while he was waiting for Wisconsin to make its mind up and for them to get the whole contract negotiated. And he was up there 4 days, and they said, not only are you staying through this election, but we have one in the spring we want you to work on. So he's
and he's on everybody's channel right now, isn't he? On Linda's channel.
Yeah, he's been on Linda and Andre, and and he's probably going to be with Scott and I on Sunday morning, kind of a wrap-up look at how he sees things, because he gets information in the background. Now, you can't ask him anything about Wisconsin because that's proprietary. That's what he's working on. But we have great connections into the Brennan Institute in New York, which is an incredible democracy institute. And there's a couple of other ones, and he gets, he's in Green Bay, Jen. I don't know where you live. He's in Green Bay working, and he's hiring walkers. He believes we do nothing but field programs, because I gave up on phone surveys and all the rest of that crap. The only way you can know what a voter's doing is if you talk to that voter.
Yeah.
Face to face, not behind a phone, not behind a screen. Yeah. And that's what he does. And then he compiles, every night he compiles all the walking information, and they see exactly where they are. And he was in Florida 4 years ago. And of course, there were 2 hurricanes while he was supposed to be walking. So needless to say, they were more swimming than walking. But he came within a point of where everybody landed on their ballots. I mean, that's how good it can be if you know how to run the numbers. So,
yeah. So I hate to bring this down, but let's talk about that shame.
Shame. Okay. How do we get out of shame?
Yeah. That's good. That's a good way to
start. These are some clues, points. This is another thing I stole off another channel. Worry less. Change your focus. So if instead of when you hit that first thing of, I made a mistake, and what you need to do is, I've learned to take the word mistake and turn it into experience, and the way we learn is from experiences. Yeah. And so that kind of takes some of the sting off that. But if you're there, you can meditate, look at long-term goals. So you have this one little bump in the road. And for those of you that don't know it, I think the Ace of Swords is the bump in the road ace. It means you're moving forward, but there's going to be speed bumps to stop you, to make you look at what you're doing. So maybe it's a bump in the road. Look at what you're doing. You should go and find someone. If you have someone you can go to and get a physical touch, connect to another living being, or you can do it with your pets.
Yeah, your pets. Get a massage.
And socialize. Try to get out and socialize. Exercise. That's one I can't. When I'm down, man, the last thing I can think about, put those shoes on and go walk. And things that'll help your dopamine are meditation, doing a to-do list, getting your mind focused around a to-do list, eating foods rich in L-tryptophan. That's like turkey, and there's pumpkin seeds have tons of L-tryptophan. And create something. Just create something, anything. Have some little creative thing you like to do, and do it. One day, Teri, you and I are going to do I have this thing it's a scribble art, and it's a kind of way that you think about an issue, and you just draw lines in the paper, and then you decide what colors you want to fill it in with, and you make all kinds of interesting art. Let me see. I think I have one in my slides.
It sounds beautiful.
And I don't, of course. I
No.
took that because I'm trying to clean my computer up. But anyway, it's actually was developed by a psychologist in Russia to help people get out of their stuff. You scribble anyway, right?
I do. This is one of my latest scribbles. This guy is the plant man.
Mm-hmm. He's cute.
He's kind of cute, isn't he? Anyway, I do elementals and ETs, and then I have some goddesses, and then I write stuff. Just I journal around them, kind of like graffiti art, and it really helps me to come back to a center line or center point.
Watch a comedy. Watch something you know is going to make you laugh. Eat dark chocolate. There's something in dark chocolate, and I know people who like chocolate. I'm not that fond of chocolate. I mean, I like it. I'm not a nut about it. Now this one I do like, and unfortunately it requires eating. But eat spicy foods. I've been learning how to make Asian soups, Japanese soups, and
amazing.
And I finally broke down and got all the little pieces I need to make it. So, and I got a couple bags of frozen dumplings and stuff, and I'll make myself a soup. And if I really want to wake myself up, I'll throw some gochujang in there and spice it up. But I learned to like Japanese soups because I don't gain weight when I eat Japanese soups.
They're really good. Yeah. I think all that spice in them too invigorates your chi.
Yeah, and you throw bok choy in there, chop up the bottom part, and put the big green leaves in there. And I got a shipment of things from an Asian store here in Dallas, and I went all the way, man. I got the properly roasted seaweed.
Nice. Yeah.
So they hide in there too, and you can get away with like almost no meat if you get the frozen dumplings. The other things I can do is I learned how to soft boil an egg in my Instapot. It's a real trick. You have to set it for 1 minute, and you have to be there when it finishes and remove the pressure and get it out, and they're perfect.
Wow.
They're perfect.
Yeah, those eggs are to die
Sushi eggs. Sushi eggs.
Yeah, really, really good.
And I'm sending everyone off to an early lunch. No. What do you have that you think helps?
Well, I changed the label on things. So I like what you said about, change it from I made a mistake to an experience. Just changing that label is huge. And also changing the story, the whole storyline. Like I made a mistake. Instead of that, I had an experience that changed everything. Also, sometimes you look at what happened in the past, like, and perhaps if it was abuse or a situation that you felt like you were a victim, you change the labels. So instead of victim and abuser, you can change the label to you were a child, or you didn't know what was happening. You were unaware. And that person was, and you can call them every 4-letter word you can think of. And that kind of empowers you, but also just changes the whole vibration around it. I love what you said about playing a game or a to-do list, because that does give you endorphins every time you cross something off. And I used to make these huge to-do lists, right, that were a mile long. And now what I do instead is I do like the things that I already did that day, I'll put on it as well. Yeah. Because every time you cross something off, like you washed your face, you made your bed, whatever you've already done, you just cross it off and you get those endorphins, just like you had just
Mm-hmm.
started doing them. So giving yourself credit for that. I love the meditation part, of course, and the creating part. And another thing is some of those people, when we get into that, we really get into that shame game and changing that story of that what you're feeling and abiding in your heart, like and then abiding in your heart. I like there's that 4 part of it. Like you abide in your heart and you look at it like,
Mm-hmm.
what if this happened to a child? What would you say?
Mm-hmm.
What if I was your neighbor or your friend looking at it? What would you think?
Mm-hmm.
And what would you think of it if this was someone that you loved dearly?
Mm-hmm.
So it changes everything about it. Anyway, yeah.
Here's
So
somebody who suggests writing down a to-done list.
to done list.
At the end of the day, have a great sense of. I have to sit down because sometimes I think I'm sitting here and considering how I used to run volunteer groups of 6,000 people
Wow.
and have to manage them and get them out every day and stuff. And I don't think I'd have the strength to do it now, but um, I did. I really loved people, and people really enjoyed joining groups that I created, or I couldn't have created groups like that. I really don't like people that much anymore. As far as going out and looking for them, y'all are fine. You stay where you are. But I was telling Teri this Thursday evening, I'm doing a Halloween party I've done for 6 years. And I'm not going to go into all the stories because most of them are pretty long, but I've been following this group of young women now for 6 years as their annual reader. And it's really fascinating. And I even went and did the party at the height of COVID. My kids were freaking out. They said, don't go do this. And I said, I know she has a big backyard. She had this table, they'd be across from me. I wouldn't let anyone touch the cards. I brought my own drinking water. I mean, brought the bottle because you never know what's on people's hands. Um, and I had a wonderful time. And they were so grateful I was there because they had all been basically in isolation to some extent. And the hostess of the party and the woman who helps her organize it both had COVID in the original round. They got it in New York City and brought it back.
Yeah.
One of them was the first person in Dallas hospitalized with COVID. And she went through a year of terror because they weren't getting the proper kidney responses. This is when they were just beginning to understand what COVID tore down in people. And she wrote me an email and said, you told me to tell you when you were right and the doctors were wrong. I never saw her kidneys stopping. I saw that as a great warning to her about thinking she was invincible. And I said, if you take care of yourself, you'll be okay. And she said, I did it. I did the right things and she's okay. She actually, since then, she's had a baby, which they had thought she was never going to be able to have too.
Congratulations.
Yes. So don't always believe the doctors, but listen to them. And then listen to your own body and say, is that right? My body laughs at my doctors quite a bit.
Aw. Hi, Sharon. I just wanted to say hi to Sharon Sipe. And a lot of people are talking about abuse and as a child or
Mhm.
detailing, whether it's physical or sexual abuse. There's like or neglect, which is horrible. Also, it's a big deal, and changing the name on that. And with shame comes a lot of like. Sometimes then you're kind of are the black sheep in the group, you know.
Yeah,
Just
well, I came in with a strong sense of I don't I'm not sure why I belong here.
yeah.
Really, because as a kid, there were many things I did. Anyway, Mary Sunshine, thank you. If you hit the
Aw.
like button, thumbs up, that'll raise your endorphins too. Yes.
Poor Mary. Thank you. She's so sweet. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
And
anyway,
turn the TV off or turn it to something fun. If you're looking for something fun to watch that's just interesting, if you can understand British accents, and these aren't terribly hard British accents, but I watch an antiques roadshow in Britain where they put two collectors in the same car, and it's always a vintage car. And the reason I started watching it was because I had a vintage MGA when I was in high school, and they were driving around England in my vintage MGA. But they put two antiques collectors, they send them out with $200. They have 3 days to spend it all. Then they take what they bought to an auction, and whoever has the most money is. And I like it because I like vintage things. I love the stories. But the cool thing about this show also is they go to places in England you'd never go to. Like the first factory that made spools for thread.
Oh,
And they show how they made it and all the steps it went through, and it's now a heritage site. But they go to people's houses that did incredible things, and they the one I saw this morning was the one about the spools of thread. That's why I remembered it. But and then they also have times when, and the celebrities mean nothing to us, which is why I like this kind of reality TV. They take two British celebrities who mean nothing to us because it's people. It's like they go get like a commentator that's like on one of the morning shows, and they'll take them out for 3 days and they each celebrity gets one expert on antiques and auctioning. But it's really, really interesting. And it's really interesting. The smallest little thing that can make something you'd walk right past. Like a guy found a Wedgwood pin, and Wedgwood china that's got the
the blue and white, or green
yeah,
and white sometimes. Yeah.
yeah. The difference was this Wedgwood had Wedgwood on the back. Apparently, no one realized it. They thought it was a cheap knockoff. It was in the booth. It was in the bin at the antiques place for $4, and I think they sold it for 60 some. I mean, it's really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's another show that you might want to like.
Yeah.
Dead Boys Detectives. No, that's where I'm looking for. Wait a minute. Where'd she go? Anyway, there was a show on Netflix. Here it is. Jen wandered into my Saturday class. Anyway, it's called Dead Boy Detectives. It's fascinating because these guys are between heaven and where we are, and they run into all the metaphysical and elemental characters we run into.
Ooh.
And it is, whoever researched this did a really good job, because elves and sprites and fairies are not the little Tinkerbells we think they are. And there's a session where these guys they're either sprites or elves, and they're dressed in the old English. They look like little tiny Welsh people. And they find them, and they are the most foul-mouthed critters, and they trap them in a jar, and they can't get out. And it's really funny. But they talk to elementals from the sea. They talk to elementals in the ground. They talk to trees. But they do use all the skills to try to help the living. And they're too young. They were teenagers when they died. They died in the same boys' school. And their souls were trapped there, and they met. And they keep trying to avoid being sent across. They don't want to cross. They want to stay the Dead Boy Detectives. It's fascinating. If I can tell you, because I read on this stuff all the time, whoever did that show really researched and didn't you kind of go, what? And they didn't make it up.
They know. I mean, Star Trek and, all that. They know that stuff is really on target, a lot of it. I'm going to watch the Dead Boy Detectives. I've been watching Downton Abbey for forever. Like I've seen it all of it 5 times, all 11 seasons or whatever they are, because that's kind of my go-to space. And anybody here that's going through grief, and I know several people in the group have lost loved ones lately. And so having that safe space to go to, and sometimes it's a TV show, sometimes it's a cup of tea, and sometimes it's a sofa or a chair that you feel really comfortable in. But having a space like that you can go to is huge. And I always remember that when I have something that's upset me, that I'm like, okay, I know exactly where to go and I can take care of this.
Right.
It's a big thing.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's important because it's like the essay we started with about the interbeing.
Yeah.
It's like that. And I put his name back. It was an essay by this Buddhist monk who died last year, ran a center in France. He's fascinating. And what got this whole discussion started, since we now have about 50 more people than we had when we read it, is the interconnectedness of everything. And it starts with looking at a white sheet of paper and then seeing that it's a white cloud. And then you talk about all the things that go into making the cloud, the sun, the rain, the things. And then that rains on the forest, which creates the trees so that the logger cuts the tree down so we can have the paper so we can see the cloud. But anyway, when you get to the end of the essay, it goes into how we're all connected to everything. And I think what happens is when we suffer a death, we don't want to be around anything sometimes. And that's harmful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, a mental safe space. You have those too, Cheryl. I love that. Hi, Teresa. Then there's a Gail
And you're
seems like
right. When you're down and out today, pick it up piece by piece.
yeah, yeah. And this is really interesting. This makes so much space, or so much sense rather, in space
Mm-hmm.
that we do need that right now because starting Friday, like I got on my show and immediately I was sick and had to cancel. And I was like, why did you get on there for 15 minutes? Why didn't you just at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning say don't do it? And then today I made like I think probably 20 shows, half of them on Heart and Soul Connected because I'm also a moderator on her stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to cancel all those and make them new. And then anyway, it's a long story, but I goofed up a lot of stuff today electronically, and
I
it's just
told you why Mars is square the sun and
yeah,
Chiron. It's telling you get healed. Chiron is the wounded uh, uh, mini planet that they follow in astrology. And when he's near anything around you, something's going to either it's going to heal suddenly or it's going to stay sick. And like I said at the beginning of this, maybe I didn't. Go watch Steve Judd, Judd. He's on YouTube. Go look at his thing from yesterday, and it's about the aspect we're under. And right now, it's like I told Teri, I was speaking to someone yesterday, and she made a comment to a friend where he'd set himself up again. She said, I can't believe you're that stupid. And she didn't think anything of it. And 12 hours later, she got this email that burst out of her computer on fire saying, don't call me stupid. And it's not a person whose ego you would expect to feel that way about it. Well, she just hit him at exactly the wrong time.
yeah,
And especially under that aspect, that's going to be happening to a lot of people.
yeah.
And
We're
that's why
very
you're not feeling
sensitive.
well. Here's another one. Somebody got sick Saturday.
Hmm.
Well, today I'm somewhat better. Finally
Yeah.
able to, oh, that always helps.
Oh man, it does help a lot. Yeah, it's everybody has a different story, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and you might be in the same experience and you get a completely different story out of it than the other person.
Yeah, I've been
So,
not breathing for days. I knew this was coming. I woke up 3 days in a row with my oxygen sats under 80 because there was a mix up at the doctor's office and they didn't send through the one breathing thing that works for me. And I have other things that kind of eke me through, but they keep me at 88. And if you've never had your oxygen sats go to 88, you're blessed and you feel like you're drunk. It's like drinking 5 scotches in a row.
yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I had a bad chest thing a few years, but well, probably about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, and a lot of people here are talking about being sick. My daughter's not feeling well. There's a lot of people. Oh, Singing Tree, you lost your singing voice 2 weeks ago. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
You'll find it. You'll find it. Because when this will go away, it might. I would imagine that my feelings are it's going to linger through Wednesday.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I've learned something about my doctor's office about their billing procedures of how to track them down. People don't understand what being tracked down is until my kids said, "Man, they don't know what they're messing with, do they?" Woo! I'll get them.
Don't start, right? Yeah.
Don't even cross that line.
Yeah. I used to be not vengeful, but if somebody didn't come around to my way of thinking, and I bought some chairs,
Hmm.
and they were expensive chairs, and anyway, they wouldn't take them back because they were faulty, and so I left reviews all over the place, which
Hmm.
why I did that and took that time and that energy. So anytime that I feel like I'm want to be vengeful or something, I'm like, remember the chairs, Teri. Remember the chair story. That's too
Hmm.
much energy to expend on anything.
Yeah, my computer whiz daughter was in college, and she got a hold of a rumor, and it wasn't a rumor; it actually happened. Um, at the end of an election in Dallas County, the FBI was waiting where the machines were being taken back to because there was reason to believe that things were happening to the machines. Well, my daughter at that point was a Twitter monitor, and she had a huge Twitter following. She could send stuff out everywhere. And so, but she didn't want to put it on her chain. So she talked to the Twitter person in Michigan, and the Twitter person in Michigan put it on their chain. And the next morning, my daughter got a phone call from DOJ wanting to know who had told her this. And she said, because the kid in Michigan, the second they saw it was really the DOJ. But my daughter didn't do that. She said, "Who are you? What's your name? And if you can care to give me your approximate age, you can call me back in 10 minutes." And he said, "Weird, but okay." So he did it. And by the time he called back, she knew where he graduated from college, what postgraduate degrees he had. She knew, she said, "I could give you your home address, but I don't want to scare you. And I know that's supposed to be hidden." And the guy said, "Okay, you found out through those kind of things." And she said, "Yes," because she didn't want to snitch me out. I'm the one who told her. Um, and she she called me up. She was laughing. But one time, somebody sold her a faulty phone, and the
Mhm.
screen cracked right away. And it was her first big thing she bought for herself after she started really working for a living. And she was crushed. And then they treated her badly.
Yeah.
And so she got her way all the way up to the vice president of products. And she's checked it and said, "Hey, you are really the vice president of products. You've been there 6 months." That always all the kinds of stuff she can find. Trust me, nothing about you is secret. And the guy said, "Well, what's wrong?" And she said, "You sold me this, and you claim it has this glass, and now it's broken, and my mission." So they replaced her phone. But the guy said, "I'm just curious. What do you do for your hobby?" And she said, "I run a giant Twitter feed." And he said, "Oh, I'm so glad we replaced the phone," because he knew what the next thing would be. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's so much easier to be nice about things and take care of things. So,
Yeah, and you don't know what people know. And if you want to know, go into Chat GPT and you can do it for free. Dorothy Morgan and I were doing a show together, and done one 6 months before. And so I typed in YouTube blurb for, and this is why my blurbs for my shows got so much better because Chat does them for me. And and it writes you little descriptions at the top of, "Do you want this included?" And it said, "When you and Dorothy spoke 6 months ago." And I went, "What? Why
wow.
would AI care if Dorothy and I spoke 6 months ago?" And, uh, I said, "That's kind of more than I wanted people to know, but there's no escaping it." And
Yeah. Yeah. She's really interesting, intuitive. I haven't had her on yet, but I want to.
Yeah, I'm going to have her on really soon. This month is so effed up. I'm sure everybody who she reads for is calling her every day. If you want to see a really screwed up chart, I'll have it next Tuesday. I'll have it tomorrow. I'll pull it up. What October 30th is going to look like in the sky. And
Interesting.
Unbelievable trines and sextiles and squares. And I mean, it's a mess.
Wow. So you think that's an October surprise?
I think this whole October is a surprise. We are having more weird planets because the major planets are moving into places they haven't been for a long time. And so they're squaring things that are there annually. Not going to hurt you. But it's just a matter of, it's really read everything 3 times to make sure you understand it. Think about it twice and then maybe mention it once.
Yeah.
See your dog, Grish. It's got to be your dog.
Yeah. He does. He's taking care of business out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, everybody's saying you haven't felt especially off, especially after the hurricane stuff. You've kept to yourself. I know, Debbie. I'm so sorry. And there's so many people here, and our hearts go out to you that were affected by the hurricanes and the flooding, and
then everybody lying about it. I mean, believe what you've seen in the past, where the government shows up and they really help you out. And I know when you're stuck in the middle of it, it's harder than hell. That's when I lose my temper. But we're also at an hour.
Oh, golly. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Nancy Jean, for having me.
Oh, yes. Is it your place next time, or are you
It's
going to be well enough?
be, but you always jump on there. So I'm like, okay, I'll go over there.
Okay. Well, I don't care. I can set you up so you can watch the chat and post it too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. Just watch me. Don't do it today.
No, I'm not going to do it today.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to show. Every planet that are moving are weird altogether. There's some really effing things up. There are some planets up there.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.